The backhand position is basically the same as the forehand. It requires about 30 continuous rallies. The first thing is to keep your balance stable. Don't keep your center of gravity too high. You must stay grounded. A common mistake many people make is moving the body too often or adjusting left and right excessively. The footwork becomes too fragmented. We must first ensure that our body's center of gravity remains stable. Even when you get a half table ball, your feet must still maintain that stable base. Use about 50% of your strength when practicing in the backhand position. Never use brute force. During this training process, the focus is mainly on ball control and touch. There's another point to keep in mind. Try to avoid inconsistent strength. For example, after 2 shots, you suddenly want to add power. This is actually wrong. During training, both players must stay in a training mindset. The main goal is consistency and stability. Keep the rhythm steady. Yes, rhythm stability and power stability. The second point is when hitting the ball. Many people always aim to this spot. This becomes a habit in matches. So when switching to the forehand, the opponent can attack us directly. That's why we need to pay attention to the diagonal. Try to place the ball closer to the sidelines. Roughly speaking, after several sets of practice, once the ball feel is improved, we can start practicing backhand power strokes. There are 2 types of backhand power strokes. One is backhand punch. The other is backhand rip. This is punch. Ripping means, with the same motion, you add brushing and spin. That is ripping. The second stage of training should include footwork. But why didn't we start with footwork? Because the training sequence differs from the forehand. For the backhand, generating power and sense of space is usually weak, so you need a lot of time to practice that. But for the forehand, when adding power, you can move back or down. There is space. The difficulty for forehand is footwork, but not for the backhand. Finding the contact point in backhand is easy. You don't need to spend too much time on footwork. You can just practice it incidentally. The key in backhand rallies is how to increase the threat, because in modern matches, many rallies start from the backhand. After a long serve, the 2 players start rallying. So in such rallies, how do you take the initiative? For example, by changing to the down-the-line shot, or pressing the middle position, or stepping around. These are all ways to increase shot quality. The key point is clear. Using power is how you take the initiative in backhand rallies. So there are 2 methods. The first is punch hitting. The second is brushing with spin ripping. Basically, just these 2. Both methods must be mastered. Otherwise, during rallies you may enlarge your strokes but lack quality. Without spin, the ball easily goes out. That's what shot quality means. This is something we need to master. Whether you use punch or rip, both work. My suggestion is for players with explosive power. If you feel you have strong spatial sense and explosive strength, then learn punch. The benefit of punch is that the shot comes off like a hard board, very fast, and difficult for the opponent to defend. It wins by speed. But what's the drawback? It's unstable and relies heavily on touch. If you feel that your punches still feel weak and soft, then in that case, you should train ripping. Focus on the feeling of brushing. Brush the ball. Some players practice for half a year or a year and still can't find the punch feeling. That's just wasting your time. You need to bring out your natural strengths. If you feel you can't do anything well, it's because you haven't found the right skill that suits your talent. So when we practice ripping, use the wrist to drive the forearm to accelerate and brush. Don't use full power yet. Just graze the ball. So if your basic rallies can last about 30 shots without breaking form, then at this stage, don't just keep practicing backhand drives. Progress will be too slow. At this stage, you must decide whether to focus on punching or on ripping. You need to plan for yourself. More than 70% of rallies actually start from the backhand. Few rallies start from your forehand baseline. For many topspin rallies, both players start backhand to backhand, then switch to forehand. This is how table tennis techniques have evolved today. So how do we train at this stage? For backhand punch shots, apply force every 2 to 3 shots. How much force? About 50 minus 70. Don't go full power. For example, look again. This is light hitting once or twice, then add power. That's about 70% of my strength. Backhand punches are really hard to block. They're sudden, because the motion is small. It's hard for the opponent to catch my rhythm. So the key point for players is, in backhand rallies, when you add power, if you don't get the feeling of generating power, that won't work. That shows no natural strength. Better to train ripping. If you've moved from backhand drives to backhand ripping, how do we make progress? First, add brushing. Watch my movement. This is a drive. See that? This is a rip. You can see the difference, right? In ripping, the fingers and wristed spin with brushing. Yes, it's about brushing. You must engage the fingers and the wrist's brushing action. How do we start practicing? Hold the ball, wrap the ball. Make the ball spin. See, there's a big difference between ripping and driving. So when you first contact the ball, for ripping, adjust the wrist slightly, see? Then at contact, watch. Rotate the wrist. Rotate the wrist to hold the ball. Brush and grip the ball. If like this, even if your wrist moves, it's just the arm hitting forward. No spin. That's why your rips don't produce spin. You end up ripping short and high. First, practice the feeling of holding the ball. Experience the feeling of friction. Everyone take a look. You may feel the ball is quite slow. But if the opponent doesn't control the wrist, it will definitely go out. Use your fingers and wrist to spin the ball. Just keep practicing this friction feeling. Add friction with your wrist and fingers at the early drop. This is the backhand rip practice method. Why don't I let you use this kind of stroke? Very likely it will turn into a flat hit at the moment of contact. You can't feel the friction. Yes, but the threat of ripping. This is its threat. You see, after the ball comes over, it both spins and drives through. But if you don't apply friction, you just rip like this, it will be very easy to defend. But if you rip with added spin, it flies off with just a touch. Ripping is not only about speed, it also needs spin, so we should isolate spin and practice it separately. Friction it. This is indeed tiring. The fingers and wrist get tired because you need to grip and stop instantly. At first, you won't be able to rip well. So just follow this method. Reduce the use of upper arm and forearm. Mainly use fingers and wrist to drive the forearm. Then close the racket angle a bit and brush. Brush the ball to add spin. Gradually add a little speed. Add a bit of forearm. Then speed will come out. One player defends, one player rips. That's much better practice. Don't both rip at the same time, it causes errors. Both wanting to practice doesn't work. You can rip for 5 minutes. Then your partner rips for 5 minutes. After you've trained the friction feeling well, add forearm power. Combine the two together. That's the backhand rip.